Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story about an unlikely friendship between a broke music student and a persistent homeless man who just wanted a smoke and maybe some change. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. He kept me company on the walk to school. I finally paid him back. In 2003, I returned home from my first year of college. I decided to switch schools and degrees and attend a local music technical college instead. I moved back into my parents' home and drove into the city each day for classes. In order to save on parking, I purchased a permit to park in a church's lot. This lot was about 10 blocks from the school, so I had a decent walk each day. About a week into classes, I was on my walk, smoking a cigarette, when out of nowhere, a homeless man appears right next to me. He looks, as you might imagine, late 50s, messy salt and pepper hair, flannel shirt, snow pants, work boots with no laces. He leaned in and asked, "Hey, buddy, can I get a smoke?" Now, I was 19 at the time and a bit cocky. I was going to give him one, but he had to work for it. I told him he could have one, but he would have to walk with me to class and keep me company while he smoked it. He agreed, and off we went. We exchanged names and asked each other basic questions about our lives, the normal pleasantries. About a block from school, we tossed our butts, and he leans in again and says, "Hey, buddy, I gotta ask, got any spare change?" I replied, "Sorry, but I don't keep change on me." At the time, I tossed all my spare change in some glass milk jugs I had in my room, so we parted ways that day. I kid you not, 2 weeks later, this man had memorized my class schedule. Every single day, this man would meet me at the corner, ask for a smoke, and walk me to class. Every day asking for change, and me having none. This continued for almost 15 months. The school I went to didn't have summer breaks. So now it's just a few weeks away from graduation. It's the end of winter. I'm getting ready in the morning for class. I put on my leather trench coat, grab my book bag, and head for the door. I look down at the floor and see 2 glass milk jugs overflowing with change. I look down at the huge pockets in my coat, then back at the change jars. I'm gonna do it. I take each milk jar and turn them upside down into each pocket. You have no idea how much 2 gallons of change actually weighs. Then I head off to school. Things start off like normal. He meets me at the corner. I give him a smoke. We set off. I'm trying my best to step lightly as to not make my pockets jingle, and I can't look him in the face because I don't want to totally lose it. We finally get to the end of our walk. We tossed our cigarettes. He turned to me and said, "Hey, buddy, I gotta ask, you got any change?" So I turned to him and say, "Okay, I'm gonna make you a deal. I will give you all the change I have in my pockets if you promise to never ask me for change again. Deal?" He nods his head in agreement and holds out his one hand, palm up. "No, you don't understand," I said. "I have a lot of change." So he holds out both hands, cupping them together. "No," I said, "you don't understand. I have a lot of change." He stands there with a questioning look on his face, so I grab the bottom of his sweatshirt and pull it up and make him hold it like a hammock. I then proceed to start shoveling handfuls of change into his sweatshirt, handful after handful, and his eyes are getting wider in sheer disbelief. Just when he thinks I'm about finished, I switch to the other pocket, more and more change. Its sound is echoing between the buildings, and both of us are laughing uncontrollably. I finally finished. He thanked me and waddled off like a pregnant woman, and I went to class. The next day was bright and sunny. I parked my car at the church. I'm walking, big smile on my face. He meets me at the corner, also with a big smile on his face. He leans in with a huge grin and says, "Hey, buddy, can I get a smoke?" "Yeah, buddy, you can have a smoke." Love this story. I bet you did more for him than you realized. Many people in his position talk about feeling dehumanized and looked down on like they're not worthy of interaction. You gave him that, and what an amazing gift that is. And our second story. You're late even though you're early. This happened many years ago when I was 15. I worked at a Holiday Inn as a prep cook. This Holiday Inn was one of the larger and nicer ones. It had a fully equipped restaurant open all day. The chef was an older, 50 to 60-ish, gray hair and beard European man. He had a fairly heavy accent. I started work at 6 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays and was always on time. My father would always drive me to work on these days. This was one of my first jobs and was afraid of screwing anything up, so I always showed up early enough to change and sit for a 10-minute coffee before starting. The change rooms were just a flight of stairs below the kitchen, and they kept the uniform stocked on shelves in there. This particular morning, I got there at the same time I always did. I went to the change room but found no uniforms. I asked the chef where I could find uniforms, and he advised me to go to the laundry facilities and grab some clean ones, not just for me, but a cart full to bring back. As I mentioned in the beginning, this was a large hotel. It took me a full 15 minutes to go to the laundry and come back with the uniforms. After changing, I had no time to sit for a coffee, so I went right into the kitchen to start my shift. I approached the chef to ask what we're working on that morning, but before I could, he asked me, "What time is it?" I replied, "It's 6 o'clock. He said, "No, it's not. It's 6:05. You're late. Get out of my kitchen and come back to start at 6:30. He knew I had to go to the laundry for uniforms, and I tried to say something about it. He just said, "This is my kitchen, and there's no excuses for being late. Get out and come back at 6:30, and you'll be docked the half hour." Needless to say, I left the kitchen and came back to start at 6:30. From that day forward, I had to make sure I added 15 minutes to my arrival time in the event I had to get uniforms again, which did happen again. I made sure I got there early enough to have my coffee, even with the trip to the laundry. One of these days, I got there at my new, usual arrival time. I put on my uniform and was making my way through the kitchen to the restaurant to have my coffee before my shift. As I passed through the kitchen, the chef saw me and asked me to get him some carrots from the walk-in cooler. I asked him, "Chef, what time is it?" He says, "It's 6 o'clock. I said, "No, it's 5:45. I don't start for another 15 minutes. Well, he just lost it. He started cursing me out and even threw a plate. Not directly at me, but it did shatter when it hit the floor. "You don't talk to me like that, you stupid bleepity bleep bleep bleep. This is my kitchen. You do what I say. Get the F out. You're fired." I guess I must have been holding on to some anger, as I didn't even think about my reply to him. It just came out. My father came to pick me up, and we spoke with someone in charge. The fact I was 15 years old and he threw a dish didn't bode well for him. We found out this isn't the first time he's thrown dishes in the kitchen like that. He was fired a couple of weeks later. I don't really understand why chefs think they can get away with this kind of crap. You cook food. You're not curing cancer. And even if you did, that doesn't mean you can be a jerk about it. And our next story. I've got to remember to take off my hard hat and vest. I work construction, and my position in my company has me visiting different job sites on a daily basis, meeting with my superintendents and inspecting timelines, workflow, and addressing issues as needed. One of our larger projects at this time is a 9-story high-rise in an area where they also happen to be working on widening a 4-lane and adding turn lanes, so it's a mess for daily traffic. It also has nothing to do with what we do. Thursday afternoon, I was leaving the job site and stopped into a convenience store for fuel and a Gatorade, and I noticed a lady in her 60s or 70s get out of her car and begin eyeballing me. I started the pump and began walking inside when she called out to me, caught up, and asked when we were going to finally finish the road work. "Ma'am, that work has nothing to do with me, but I'd estimate another month or so." She looked me up and down and said, "You're dressed just like them. Why wouldn't you know?" I told her that I wasn't involved in the road work and pointed to our building, explaining that my company was working on it and the road work was being performed by name of contractor. Then she asked, "So who do I talk to over there? They make it very difficult to get in and out of my neighborhood." "I have no clue. I don't know anyone over there." "But you knew their company name." "It's on the equipment and trucks, ma'am." "I think you're just trying to get out of answering my questions. There's no sense in having all these different companies working in the same area. Who do I talk to about that?" "Yes, ma'am, it's definitely inconvenient. The city contracts all the road work. They'd be who to talk to." "So you'll talk to them about hurrying up?" "Yes, ma'am. I'll see what I can do." I walked into the store on Friday morning for coffee, and I saw her standing at the register. I turned around and just drank the superintendent's swell in the job trailer. Next time you see her, ask her sincerely, "Are you my grandma?" When she answers no, of course, respond with, "But you're dressed like all the grandmas I've seen before." "No, I think you're just being disingenuous and pretending to be a grandma when you aren't one at all." And our last story. You want war, Martha? Say goodbye to your garage. When my wife and I moved into our new home, we were excited to start fresh. The backyard was perfect. Room for the dog to run, space for weekend barbecues, and quiet enough to finally breathe. Or so we thought. It took less than a week for us to meet her, Martha, the self-appointed guardian of neighborhood standards, living in the big white house next door with hedges trimmed like a military haircut. She introduced herself with what I can only describe as weaponized small talk. Casual questions laced with judgment, delivered while peering over the fence like she was inspecting livestock. It started small, a passive-aggressive comment while I was mowing the lawn. Then it escalated. Every time I so much as pulled a weed, she was there, watching, arms crossed like a suburban gargoyle. And it wasn't just me. One day my wife walked in from the yard looking like she just had a conversation with a brick wall dipped in condescension. She said our dog barks too much. Our dog, who's 14, half deaf, and hasn't barked at anything louder than a passing squirrel in 3 years. The final straw? I parked with half a tire touching the curb while unloading groceries. 10 minutes later, there was a warning sticker on my windshield. The city had gotten an anonymous complaint. Gee, wonder who that could have been. That was it. If Martha liked watching us so much, I figured I'd give her a new view. Nothing at all. So I built a fence. 6 feet and 8 glorious inches of cedar privacy, tight slats, no gaps, zero visibility, a masterpiece. It ran the entire length of the property line facing Martha's yard. The day I finished it, I was on the patio when I saw her come outside, tape measure in hand, of course. The next morning, knock at the door. City inspector, clipboard, vest. Got a complaint about a fence, he said, eyeing the cedar fortress. You want coffee before we start, I asked. He laughed. Let's take a look first. He walked the fence line, measured a few posts, jotted some notes. Then he looked at me. You build this yourself? Yep, just wanted a little piece. Didn't think a few inches would cause trouble. He sighed and tucked his tape back in the pouch. It usually wouldn't, but this neighbor's filed 13 complaints in the last 3 months. Halloween decorations, lawn lengths, someone's recycling bin being out a day early. 13? I blinked. Yep, you're not even the worst of it. Then he glanced toward her house and added, since I'm out here, I need to check adjacent structures. Routine inspection. We walked around back and he pointed at her detached garage. She built that recently, he asked. A couple years ago, I think. He pulled out a laser level and started measuring the height. Then he measured again, frowned, took more notes. Huh, what's up? It's over code, about 1.5 feet too tall. We've got no permit on file. I tried to play it cool, I really did. But internally, fireworks. A week later, Martha was out front screaming at 2 more inspectors. I couldn't catch the full rant, but this is my property and unfair targeting made it through loud and clear. The city disagreed. Turns out her prefab garage violated height limits and couldn't be modified. No way to just chop the roof off and call it a day. Solution? Demolition. By the end of the month, her custom garage was in a dumpster, and she was parking her minivan under a blue tarp in the driveway. She also picked up a few thousand in fines and a separate citation for yelling at a city employee. Word spread fast. One neighbor even brought me a beer and whispered, "It finally happened." She'd spent years policing others while breaking rules herself. The universe finally sent her an invoice. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.